Welcome back to the last installment of the Audacity workshop series in AD 233. I would like to wrap up everything that we've learned so far and introduce a few new concepts in this section, finally ending with a demo composition that we can output in the correct format for this second project in class. So I want to start, however, with something that I have forgot to mention in my third episode of this workshop series on sound shaping, which is how to create amplitude envelopes to shape a sound actually quite literally in terms of its volume information. Let me start here by going back into my example sounds. Again, you can download these sounds in Brightspace, but you can also look at the link that I've posted in the comments section of this video. So let's begin with the sand mandala sound, and I recorded this last year when we had this exciting visit of Tibetan monks that would create these very elaborate and intricate sand mandalas in our gallery. And I was quite fascinated by their tools that they used in order to place the grains of sand in a very painstaking kind of way. And I recorded the sound of these tools that they used. So if you listen to that sound. All right, the part that I'm actually interested in is this almost insect or cricket sounding beginning of the sound right here. All right, so what I would like to do is I would just like to isolate this sound. I don't want the remainder of the sound, so I can just delete it, select it, hit the delete button, and then go back to the beginning. And I would also like to do a little bit of some sound conditioning here, realizing that this is probably a little bit low in terms of its overall volume information. So I select this, and then I go into effects, normalize, and this goes back to workshop 2, sound conditioning, where we try to make the sounds just a little bit better in post-production than maybe in the original recordings, where there were some flaws in terms of maybe some background noises or some low recording volume. So in this case, I just want to boost the overall dynamic of the sound a little bit more. So I set my normalization to a peak amplitude of -6 decibels, which already stretches it out when I play it back. It's quite a bit louder. And now let's imagine that I actually want to have it very slowly fade in, come to a kind of a, almost like a kind of a culmination of the sound right here, and then have it slowly fade out toward the end again. How can I create something like this in Audacity? I can enable the envelope tool right here, which will give me an editable envelope. An envelope in this sense, quite literally, that allows me to change the sound amplitude at certain points of this recording. And so I can go shape it in such a way that it begins maybe very, very quiet. It kind of starts growing in terms of its overall volume till it reaches a kind of a high point right here, and then it very abruptly comes to an end right here. So let's hear what this sounds like when I play it back. All right, so we can even be a little bit more dramatic, I think, with what we do here. Maybe have it fade in even slower than that, and then come to a complete silence here. So let's try that again. All right, and so this sounds much more dynamic already, that it's almost like a sound that's coming from far away. It swells up, it increases in volume, and then it immediately, quite rapidly drops off. So consider using this envelope tool for your compositions as well, if you want to shape the overall amplitude and volume information of a sound over time. It is quite easy to use. You can just click in here and also change these points that you've set. You can add new points, obviously, and create different kind of waveforms as well. And it's a very powerful tool for further sound shaping in post-production in Audacity. All right, but let's get started with a very simple composition that I wanted to create for you that already illustrates also the principle of working with multiple tracks in Audacity, and then wrapping up this workshop series with an export of the final sound composition from this multi-track project in form of an MPEG-3 sound file. So I would like to start, I go back to my examples, with the summer sounds background. Use this actually as a background sound for my composition, and if you want to go back to some of our reading, Kendall Wrightson's introduction to sonic ecology, soundscape composition, he actually talks about these background sounds as keynotes. He separates 3 different types of sounds that are very specific for a soundscape: keynotes, that are these background sounds, sound signals, which are foreground sounds, and we'll work with some of these as well in this composition. And then the third category he's talking about are the sound marks, and he compares these sound marks to visual landmarks. For example, if we wanted to use the sound of the Purdue bell tower in my final composition, obviously that tolling of the bell would be quite a distinct sound mark that would directly connect my composition to a place, also in the minds of the audience. So, but let's start with my background sounds, with my keynotes. I drag and drop them in here. I don't want to use the the envelope tool anymore, so I get out of this mode. And if you remember in workshop number 2, also talking about sound conditioning, I did have a little bit of some background noise, some very low frequency background noise in here that I would like to start removing first. So I select everything, and I can hit the Command A key in order to select my whole track. We'll go to Effect, and then I will go into my bandpass filter. And I remember it was around 5,000 hertz, around 5 kilohertz that I needed to set my my bandpass filter to. So basically getting rid of all of my lower frequency sounds and just emphasizing the sounds in that kind of frequency spectrum. So I apply that here, and then I can already listen to this sound. And now what I want to do is I want to selectively insert new cricket sounds, but also artificial sounds that sound possibly like some animals in the landscape, that could create an interesting kind of exchange of voices, or maybe even an imaginary dialogue between technology sounds and natural sounds in front of this backdrop, in front of these keynotes of the Indiana summer soundscape that you hear right here. So I bring in my second set of sounds by going back to my examples. I choose the traffic light beep as my artificial sound that I want to use as a sound signal, as a foreground sound in this composition. Drag and drop this in here. And now you see that immediately we already have a second soundtrack that opens up. Also going back to the second workshop, sound conditioning, there was a little bit of some background noise here as well. So if I play that solo, there's this kind of low volume background noise. Actually, I need to select only an instance of my noise in here, go to the effect, go to my noise reduction, get my noise profile, so I have that analyzed, and now I want to select everything, go to effect, and then go to noise reduction with a setting of 30 decibels and a sensitivity of 10. And again, for your sounds, if you want to reduce some background noises that you may have in your recordings, you may have to experiment here a little bit with different values, but in my case these were the 2 that worked well. And now this will result in a much clearer, more present kind of beep noise that I can use. And so I can just cut one of these out. I select it, and then I say edit, cut, for example, or copy. In fact, I can do away with all of these here because I don't really need them. And then I put my playback head somewhere in this second track, and then I just say edit, paste, and get my sound back in like that. So, and then I can paste it in different locations here, in different moments in time. So paste, paste, and maybe one more time, paste. All right. And then if you want to later on change the exact position of these in time, you can actually use the time shift tool. I sometimes call this move tool as well, because it just allows you to move certain sound elements in tracks and allows you to align them with other things in other tracks, for example. And this is what we want to do actually in the next step also, is we want to bring in our cricket sound. Then we want to align the cricket sound quite specifically with the beeping sound that we hear here, in order to create almost a kind of a call and response kind of interaction between these sounds. So where are the cricket sounds? Again, I go to my sound examples. I choose sound number 1, cricket. And then I drag and drop that into Audacity as well. And so now you can see things are getting already quite complex in here with 3 different soundtracks, 3 different stereo tracks, because each soundtrack has 2 tracks in and of itself, a left and a right channel. And then I can take a look at this one. And so I make this play solo, the cricket sound, because we haven't listened to that yet. Go back to my selection tool, click in here somewhere, and then just hit play. All right, so here's my cricket. And again, I just need actually one of these sounds. So I select everything in the beginning here, delete that, and then I select everything in the back, just to single out one cricket sound. And I can zoom in just a little bit to take a closer look at this sound, maybe to see if I missed something. Possibly play it back now. All right, and so it could be that I actually want to cut off even a little bit more at the end here, because you might have heard the humming in the background of some other crickets. So I just delete that one as well, and maybe even a little bit in the beginning as well. I zoom out, hit my shift key, press down the shift key while I use my magnifying tool. And now I can actually start composing. I can move the cricket sound as a kind of a response to the traffic noise sound. So the idea would be there's the beeping of the traffic signal, and then in response to that we hear the cricket responding with one chirp. And this is all embedded in this natural soundscape of a late Indiana summer night. All right, so I have my first instance of the sound right here, and then I just need to duplicate it. So I can do that by selecting all of this and then saying edit, copy, and then pasting it already in different places. All right. And so what you can do is, maybe in order to create more of a story here as well, is offsetting the relationship between an initial call and the response slightly, so that maybe the idea emerges that maybe the cricket is losing interest, or maybe it's thinking more and more about what it's actually responding to. So if you want to create something like this and just offset the sounds, just move them slightly out of sync with each other, and increase the distance between the initial kind of call and then the response that is following up to that. So let's just listen to that, since I've just created this but haven't had a chance to listen to that. So I want to unmute all the other tracks. I don't want to play that track in solo. So go to the beginning of my composition and then just play it back. Okay, so far so good. I just want to demonstrate a couple more things here, or just at least introduce these as ideas. The first one being spatialization, because right now both the beep of the traffic light and the sound of the cricket, they're both in both ears, and you can play with spatialization if you want to, possibly pushing the sound of the cricket into your left ear and then the sound of the traffic signal into the right ear. So how can you do that? You can actually turn stereo tracks into mono tracks, and you can do that by going to the drop down menu here for the track and just say split stereo to mono. All right, and so it creates from one stereo track, it creates two individual mono tracks. Simply get rid of one of these mono tracks. I want to do the same thing for the cricket. Split stereo to mono and get rid of one of these. And then I can actually go back into my track. Let's say we start with the traffic sign or the traffic signal. And then we can look at, sorry, it's not in here, it's actually down here already in the track, visibly at the front, this panner. It's called a pan slider. And so right now you see that pan is set to center. I can slide that all the way over to the left. And then for the cricket track, I can slide it all the way over to the right. So now when you listen to it again, you should actually hear the traffic signal beep in your left ear and then the cricket sound in your right ear. So let's try that again. Going back to my selection tool, click where I want to start this recording. All right, and you can already hear that. The last thing could be to introduce the envelope tool again, possibly even indicating further that the cricket is losing interest in that beeping of the traffic signal, and basically making the sound weaker and weaker and weaker, or quieter and quieter and quieter of the cricket. So you would do that by selecting the first sound in the cricket soundtrack and then going to your envelope tool. And you have to probably just zoom in a little bit down here for that. So going back to the envelope tool, and this one probably we won't have to do anything. We don't have to shape the envelope here, so we can probably just leave it. So we would move on to the next sound right here. Make that just a little bit quieter. The third one will already be quite significantly quieter because the idea is that the cricket is moving away. And then the fourth one would be really quiet at the end here, barely audible anymore, something like that. All right, very good. So let's zoom out again, take a look at the overall composition here, and play it one more time, and then we're already ready soon to export this as an MPEG-3 file. All right, very good. The only thing you may want to add at the end is a slight fade out, so it doesn't end so abruptly with especially our background sounds. You can do that by selecting the last second or so, maybe 1.5 seconds of this background soundscape, the summer sounds, Indiana summer sounds, and then just go to generate, effect, fade out, and it will slowly fade out that sound. You can listen to that one more time. All right, and it just fades out and ends right there. So let's assume this would be your final project and you want to turn this in for this assignment. It is always a good idea to save it one more time. In my case, I haven't even saved it a single time yet, so it's highest time to do that. Go and say save project. Call this final composition. Save it in my sounds folder on the desktop, because it will now save both the project file and this folder that has all the media information for this in there. So it's very important to keep both in the same place. And then it's also a good idea to maybe start out saving this as an uncompressed as possible file, so as the highest possible quality for the sound recording. This is not the file I ask you to turn in, but this will be a good one to keep for your own files and archive. So you can go to export, and then I would recommend saying export as WAV. You want to save this in your sound folder. Final composition.wav is great. You can leave everything as it is. Hit save, and then you can type in your artist name. This is in fact the meta information that I'm talking about in the assignment description. So please tag your files. It will be really quite fun when you for the first time put your MP3 file on your own iPod or your own MP3 player, and you see your own song title and your own artist name scrolling through the display. So I would just type in my name, one N too many, track title, soundscape composition, and then this is not part of any album, but you might want to put your class information in here. May or may not want to do that. You can put your name, but for me primarily it would be the artist name and that the track title is there, and then hit OK. And now if you look in your sound folder, you should have a new file in here, which is the final composition.wav file. All right, so now last but not least, let's also export this as an MP3 file. This would be the file that I want you to turn in for this as a final project format. So you go to File, Export, and then just say Export as MP3. Final composition MP3 is okay, and so here we can actually, since it's a compressed file format, we can actually say how much this file is compressed. So this starts with a medium, not necessarily a medium compression, but a medium sound quality to standard sound quality, extremely good sound quality, and insanely high sound quality. Probably just selecting extreme here is good. And then you would hit save. It asks you one more time about your meta information. If you haven't typed it in for your uncompressed file, now is a good time to do that. And then hit OK. And now we can go and take a look in the folder. Final composition MP3. On the Mac it's relatively easy. I just hit the spacebar and it will play it back. So I just want to make sure that everything is there. So here we go. And there we go. This would be the file that then you take to Brightspace and turn it in for your final presentation of the second project. Good luck working on your sound compositions, and I'm already looking forward to hearing everybody's projects very soon. Thank you very much.